Hi YouTube, Timothy Unkert here. In this video, we're going to use the factor theorem to fully factor cubic polynomials. Okay, so I'm going to paraphrase the factor theorem here. Basically what it says is if you have a polynomial function f of x and f of a, where a is some number, equals 0, then x minus a is a factor of the polynomial. So let's use this along with polynomial division to fully factor some cubics, and let's look at some examples. Okay, in our first example, we want to factor this function f of x equals x cubed minus 2x squared minus 5x plus 6, and we're given that f of 1 is equal to 0. So what does that tell you? Well, it tells you that x minus 1, using the factor theorem, x minus 1 is going to be a factor. So x minus 1 is going to be a factor of this cubic polynomial. So we can use polynomial division to figure this out. So let's divide this out. So we got x cubed minus 2x squared minus 5x plus 6. Okay. And we know that x minus 1 is a factor, so we can divide this by x minus 1. We should get a remainder of 0, and we should get a quadratic. And from there, we can just simply factor the quadratic. Okay, so x goes into x cubed, x squared times. Okay, x squared times x is x cubed. X squared times negative 1 is a minus x squared. And we're going to subtract this off here. So x cubed minus x cubed, well, those just cancel each other out. And then negative 2x squared minus a negative x squared. It's like negative 2x squared plus x squared. That just gives me a negative x squared. Okay, just like regular division, this stuff is going to come down. Okay, so we get negative x squared minus 5x plus 6. Now we have to look, how many times does x go into negative x squared? It goes into negative x times into it. So negative x times x is negative x squared. And then negative x times negative 1 is a positive x. We are again subtracting this. So when we subtract this, negative x squared minus negative x squared, these cancel out. Negative 5x minus another x is a negative 6x. And we bring down the 6 here. So we have plus 6. So then we ask ourselves, how many times does x go into negative 6x? It goes into it a negative 6 times. Negative 6 times x is negative 6x. And negative 6 times negative 1 is positive 6. Okay, so we're now subtracting this. If we subtract something from ourselves, we get 0. So we have a remainder of 0. So now all we really need to do is we need to factor this quadratic here. And then the factored form of this times x minus 1 will be the factored form of this. Okay, so we've got x squared minus x minus 6. Now this is an easy one to factor because a is 1, the number in front of x squared is 1. So we're just going to list the factors of negative 6, which are 1 and negative 6, negative 1 and positive 6, 2 and negative 3, and negative 2 and positive 3. And we want to find the pair of factors that adds to a negative 1, adds to this middle term here, and that is 2 and negative 3. So this quadratic factors to x plus 2 times x minus 3. And that means that this cubic here, f of x, is equal to x minus 1 times x plus 2. Let's move this over here. Times x minus 3. And for some reason that came across in a little bit different ink. Maybe do this one. Yeah, there we go. It's a little messy, but this is the final factored form of f of x. That's all there is to it. Let's take a look at a few more examples just to see how this is done, just to solidify your learning. For the next example, why don't you pause the video before I go ahead and solve it and see if you can come up with a factored form, and then check your work against mine. Okay, in our second example, we are given that f of 4 equals 0 and that f of x equals x cubed plus 11x squared minus xx minus 216. And what I want you guys to do is to try and pause the video and fully factor f of x. Okay, now that you've had a chance to pause it, let's work through this. Since f of 4 equals 0, we know from the factor theorem that x minus 4 is going to be one of the factors of f of x. Okay, so we can divide out f of x here. So we'll have x cubed plus 11x squared minus 6x minus 216. Okay, and we're going to be dividing this by x minus 4. So we should get a quadratic, and then we can factor that quadratic, and then the factored form of the quadratic times x minus 4 will be the factored form of f of x. Okay, so x goes into x cubed, x squared times. X squared times x is x cubed. X squared times negative 4 is a minus 4x squared. Okay, so we're going to subtract this part off. And x cubed minus x cubed, those just cancel out. 11x squared minus a negative 4x squared is 11x squared plus 4x squared. It's the same thing. Subtracting a negative is like adding a positive. So we're going to get 15x squared here. Okay, we're going to bring down the minus 6x. And likewise, we'll bring down the minus 216 here. All right, so x goes into 15x squared. Well, it's going to go 15x times. So we're going to do plus 15x here. So 15x times x is 15x squared. And then 15x times negative 4 is minus 60x. Okay, and we'll subtract this. Okay, the 15x squareds will cancel out. Now, negative 60x minus a negative 60x is like negative 6x plus 60x. So that's going to be 54x. And we're going to bring down the minus 216. All right, so we have to multiply x by 54. So 54 times x is 54x. Forgot to bring down the minus 216 here. Bring that down. And then now 54 times negative 4 is minus 216. And again, when we subtract something from itself, we're just left with 0. So now what we need to do is we need to factor this here. Okay, so let's factor, again, this is a quadratic where a is 1. So x squared plus 15x plus 54. Now, a little hint here is that we have a plus here and a plus here. So we're going to be looking for positive factors only of 54 that would add to 15. Okay, so I can start to work this out. So 1 and 54, obviously that adds to 55. So way off. 2 times 27. That's still too high. Let's see, divisible by 3. So do 3. 3 goes into that. 3 times, what, 18? Still too high, but getting closer. 4, not divisible by 4, not divisible by 5, but if we do 6, well, 6 times 9 is 54, and, well, 6 plus 9 is 15, so we're going to use 6 and 9, so this quadratic will factor into x plus 6 times x plus 9, and I think I have a video on factoring, so if part is confusing you, um, I will try and link that in the description, or make it if I don't have the video. Um, so now this is the factored form of the quadratic. Um, now if we multiply that by x minus 4, we're going to get the factored form of this cubic. So the factored form of the cubic, try and fit it here on the bottom of the screen, f of x is going to equal x minus 4 times x plus 6 times x plus 9. And that's going to be our solution for that one. Did you get it? We'll go through one more example in this video, and we'll see if you can get that one. Okay, in our last example, I left a little bit of a trickier one um, for the last one. So we are given that f of negative 2 equals 0, and we are also given that f of x equals 6x cubed plus 13x squared minus 4. We want to factor f of x. From what's given, we can determine that x minus a negative 2 is a factor. Another way we could write this is just x plus 2, right? Because subtracting a negative is like adding a positive. So we're going to divide this by x plus 2, all right? So we have 6x cubed plus 13x squared. Now I'm going to put a plus 0x as a placeholder. We do need that. And then minus 4 here. Okay, so that's one of the little tricks we have. So x plus 2 is what we're going to be dividing this f of x by. Okay, so x goes into 6x cubed, 6x squared times. And 6x squared times x is 6x cubed. 6x squared times 2 is plus 12x squared. And again, we'll subtract this off. we're going to get the 6x cubes are going to cancel out. And then we'll have 13x squared minus 12x squared is going to give me just 1x squared. I don't even need to write the 1. We'll bring down the 0x and bring down the negative 4. So we have plus 0x minus 4. X goes into x squared up 1x times, so plus x here. So we do x times x is x squared. X times 2 is plus 2x. Okay. So x squared minus x squared, these will cancel. And then 0 minus 2x is a minus 2x here. I'm going to bring down the minus 4. X goes into negative 2x a negative 2 times, or negative 2 times. So let's see, negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times 2 is minus 4. If we subtract something from itself, we're getting 0. So, this confirms that x plus 2 is a factor of x, or 6x cubed plus 13x squared minus 4. Okay, so now we want to factor this quadratic here. And notice a is not 1. I may have a video on this. If I have a video, I will link it, but we're going to list the factors of 6 and negative 2 in this case. So factors of 6, we'll just do the positive factors 1 and 6, 2 and 3. And the factors of negative 2 are negative 1 and positive 2, or 1 and negative 2. Now we want these to add to a positive 1 here. So if I do 2 times 2 here, that gives me 4. And then negative 1 times 3 gives me negative 3. If I add those, I get positive 1. So I want to use 2 and 3 as my coefficients in front of x. So I have 2x and 3x here. And I want the 3 to multiply by negative 1, so I have to put the negative 1 over here, because we do the inner terms when we multiply it out, if you're thinking FOIL. And then I want the 2 to multiply by 2x, so I have to put the plus 2 here. Okay, so this is the factored form of our quadratic. Now, if I want the factored form of f of x, let me write it over here. So I'm going to have f of x is going to equal x plus 2 times 2x minus 1 times 3x plus 2. Kind of running out of room here. But this is our factored form of f of x for this one. Hopefully this video was helpful to you. If it was, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And I want to thank you for watching.